Let's take a look at the brand new Absolute 2 VST instrument package from Steinberg. It includes 10 instruments with over 5,500 presets and nearly 60 gigabytes of data. Drums are handled by Groove Agent 4, which is a perfect tool for the common use of hybrid drum sets that are a combination of acoustic drums, percussion, and electronic drum sounds. We could have multiple patterns that we can have different fills, different intros, endings, and 8 main patterns. And what's great about this is you have a complexity slider. So if you want something simpler or more complex, we can move it horizontally. If we move it vertically, we could adjust the dynamics. If I wanted to edit the drum sounds, I could select my bass drum and just tune that independently of the snare. I also have full mixing control, where every single drum source has a full channel strip as well as plugins, up to 29 different plugins. We can add multiple elements to kind of sweeten the drum. So if I want to add my percussion agent, we can now play that. Or if I wanted to add my electronic drums. And now if I want to go to my mixer, I could go to my kit mixer and I could adjust the levels between the 3 different agents just that easily. Now, if I wanted to work with drum loops, and sometimes we may want to make the drum loops a little more personal, we can drag and drop audio directly from our project window onto a pad. Going to the edit menu, selecting the slice sub-tab, and then clicking on create slices will now automatically take that drum loop and place the slices across the pads, and we can choose to classify so that now at this point it could automatically determine which slices are together, such as our hi-hats, kicks, and snares, and it creates a MIDI pattern that we could drag and drop to our project window for further editing, tweaking, and so you could do some really powerful construction and deconstruction of different drum loops. One of the instruments that's incredibly popular in many genres of music is piano, and our piano is going to be handled by the Grand. The Grand has over 30 gigabytes of samples. There's no sample loops, and there's up to 20 velocity layers per key. There's 5 different models in the Grand, so you could select between a Yamaha C7, a Model D, a Bosendorfer 290, an upright piano, as well as a Yamaha CP80. Different adjustments for sustained resonance, key sound, hammer release, a full parametric EQ, different ambience controls for algorithmic and convolution reverb, as well as a very powerful control for the velocity scaling. So if I wanted this piano to be a little more mellow, or brighter, and also different settings for different tunings, for stretch tuning and different temperaments. So all this can be handled. So whether you're doing classical, jazz, pop, country, doesn't matter. If you need a great piano sound, it's going to sit perfectly in a mix. The Grand is a really phenomenal solution for that. Now, the next instrument we have is kind of more in the synth category, and it's called Padshop Pro. And what Padshop allows you to do is to have an audio file, and you could do synthesis at the sample level. So it's almost like taking a piece of glass and then being able to manipulate the pieces of sand that make that glass. So if I want to have, we'll open up my virtual keyboard, and if I wanted to just kind of play just a single note here, and then you could do some really interesting sound design tasks here. If you wanted to. Have it play backwards. Now the beauty of this is that since it's taking any sample, with the Padshop Pro, I could take a sound, even something as innocuous as a harp sound, and just drag and drop that harp sound directly in, and now I could do my synthesis based on that. So you can drag and drop your own samples, and also you get an expansion kit with it, zero gravity, that's been kind of painstakingly programmed to come up with really interesting, kind of very unique, ethereal, pad-oriented sounds. So Padshop Pro is great for that. We have the classic analog synth, a dual oscillator synth called Retrologue. So if you're looking for your classic vintage analog synth, it's polyphonic as well. You can get very thick bass sounds, just really lush, rich pads. It's a great instrument for all those different types of tasks that were used by that particular synthesizer over years and years. Also, the next instrument, Hypnotic Dance, is going to be really set up to do a lot of work in dance music. So it's kind of an application-specific synthesizer. So you have your step modulator there. Again, a dedicated tool specifically for EDM music. Another kind of beefy analog synth is Triebwerk. So if I wanted to kind of play this, and this comes with a built-in FlexPhraser arpeggiator. So if you wanted to load up different arpeggiated patterns, you could just double-click here, and you could have different rhythmic scales, different swing. Now, a real popular sound that's coming out can be generated by the instrument Dark Planet. So if I just want to play one sound, we hear this in a lot of songs, commercials. So you can just adjust that, kind of get your wobble sound, or if you wanted to adjust on the XY axis. As we start to work with our different instruments, another type of instrument that people use a lot is kind of just the bread and butter sounds of maybe like a traditional rompler, where you have a number of different pianos, Rhodes, strings, clavinets, bass, guitars, brass, the bread and butter sound. So this is what HALion Sonic will allow you to do. So it's 16-part multi-timbral. You could easily set your range here for a particular note. So you say, I only want those particular pitches to play. You have a number of different options. So 16-part multi-timbral, 16 stereo outputs. And again, you could just load up a number of different sounds. So if you don't want to necessarily create tons of your own sounds from scratch, you just want to take a lot of different sounds that people have created for you and play them back and have a lot of flexibility, the HALion Sonic is a kind of a workhorse instrument for that. Now, one of the things that you could do that's really interesting is if you go into the edit, there's particular FlexPhrasers. I could just kind of take like my grand piano here, and instead of just playing a particular note where I could just, play a single note, but let's say I'm not a good piano player, I can now just hit my FlexPhraser and activate this. And as soon as I would activate my FlexPhraser, I can now have different phrases. So if I wanted to come here to a drum kit, I could say, okay, let's activate maybe a bass with that. So you can just kind of come here and you could have each channel here, each instrument could have different arpeggios. So just a real easy way to get a lot of sounds into a single window with a lot of flexibility for editing and being able to layer sounds quite easily. Now, one of the things that's unique to the Steinberg instruments is this concept of note expression. So when we deal with a lot of MIDI devices, realize that controllers are going to be channel based and not based on the actual notes. So if I wanted to draw in volume changes separately for different notes within a chord on the same MIDI channel, I would have to separate those to different channels. With note expression, we can just simply double click on particular notes And then if I wanted to draw in an individual controller, I could select, such as my tuning here, if I wanted to take this and instead of having global MIDI controllers, we're able to just simply take this, and now we could have much more independent note-based control with our VST 3.5 instruments like Padshop, and we see this in HALion Sonic, HALion. So all these different components will allow you to have that more expressive MIDI control. The mothership of all these instruments is the one that's called HALion, and HALion is our sampler, but it's kind of a misnomer just to think of it as a sampler. It is a synthesis engine. It has an organ oscillator, it has granular synthesis, and a sampler all combined. So you can build sounds from scratch directly in HALion, where you just can build up your oscillators and layer that with samples and come up with amazing capabilities. Now, one of the things that's truly unique with this is the drag and drop nature of the integration with the Steinberg products. So if I have an audio file just resident on my hard drive, let's say of a single bass note, I can drag it right here, go to my mapping, and now I could just trigger that bass note that easily. And you could create your own layers and import different sample libraries, all the effects, incredibly flexible routing. Now, if you're not one to really build a sound from scratch, what they've done is they've given a number of different options and kind of almost a macro view. So when we go here, we could have different macro views. So if you wanted to just have a B box where you could program drum beats, super easy. If you wanted to have a world percussion, so say you don't feel like programming Turkish percussion, but you need that for a project. Someone has done all the under the scenes work, but under the hood, so that this could be just simple and painless for you. If you need a great organ sounds, instead of building the organ oscillator and, adjusting all the sliders and then adding all the effects, you just have this macro view so you can see your rotary speaker, the different amplifiers, plus the different effects that are kind of based in that instrument. If you wanted to have different ethnic world sounds, but let's say you want to do quarter tone tuning, you could do that. If you wanted to have like the HALiotron based on the classic Mellotron, so instead of building that from scratch, which you can do inside of HALion, you could just play through all of the different presets here. A number of different synthesizers as well. So if you wanted the Trip synthesizer, you have Auron, which is going to be a granular-based synthesizer. You're going to have Triumph, a triple oscillator synth. Voltage, so all these different elements. And when we go to load up different sounds, you can again kind of have a unified interface for loading up all your presets from your different instruments. And you could also just say, okay, now I'm looking for sounds from HALiotron or Hypnotic Dance or Dark Planet or Bebox. So you could actually have these different sounds. Now, one of the expansion kits that's also included, which is a great tool, is the HALion Symphonic Orchestra. So as we're working with orchestral sounds, one of the problems gets to be that you could do all this amazing orchestral work, and then to get to realism, you may need to have a lot of different articulations of like how the string was bowed or how the oboe was tongued. So the HALion Symphonic Orchestra simplifies this process so that you could see all the available articulations for the French horn, for the violin, for the viola, for the oboe, for the flute. And how we deal with this is a really unique way inside of Cubase. So if we're playing back from our HALion Symphonic Orchestra, I can now just double click on my violin part, and I could see all of the available articulations here in my MIDI editor. So I don't have to worry about memorizing what key switch does what articulation. I can say these notes, I want it to be, let's say, spiccato. So I could just say, okay, starting from that point, we'll do spiccato and then back to legato. And these notes coming up here, I want to be, we'll make it pizzicato. So just come right here, pizzicato, and then back to legato right there. So instead of having to worry about all the different articulations, let me just solo the violin so you can hear it a little more clearly. And now we'll hear the pizzicato. And this automatically reflects in the score editor as well. So as you can see, with all of the tools that you get and all the different options that you get with the Absolute 2 VST collection, from Groove Agent to the Grand, to going into Padshop, to Retrologue, to Triebwerk, to Hypnotic Dance, to Dark Planet, to the HALion Sonic, to making your own sounds in HALion 5, and being able to effectively manage your orchestral templates. All of those, that wide variety of sounds, all available in Absolute 2 for really compelling production packaging, and again with unique workflow enhancements.